I think documentary film is an integral tool to healing and to sharing of ideas and to bringing to light subjects that oftentimes are not covered as much as they should be or are not covered as in depth, so people have a very one-sided perspective of what's happened. And I think film is a way to really delve into something in a in-depth, profound way. And one of my favorite films is Pray the Devil Back to Hell, which is about the women who were part of the healing process in Sierra Leone. And so it really focused on these women's stories of what had happened in the country, the atrocities that they had experienced, and the way that they were trying to take a leadership role to really change the country and move things forward. And I think, you would hear about everything that had been happening there, but you wouldn't necessarily hear these individual stories and the impact that they can have on a community. And so for me, that's the power of film. So Saving Face was a very interesting journey, and I actually think it's a very telling journey of how documentary films get made. Our director, Daniel Youngie, he heard an interview on the BBC with the main character in the film, Dr. Mohammed Jawad, and Dr. Jawad had just performed surgery on a British supermodel named Katie Piper, who had been attacked by acid by her boyfriend on the streets of London. Nothing to do with what's going on in Pakistan. It was an isolated incident. But he is Pakistani, the Dr. Jawad. And so Daniel came to me first and said, this is an interesting story, and I wonder if Dr. Jawad is familiar with what is happening with acid attack victims around the world, specifically in Pakistan and Bangladesh and India. And he said, I need a woman's voice on this because the majority of the attacks happen on women. So we called Dr. Jawad and said, we heard your interview on the BBC. Do you know what's happening in other parts of the world? And he said, yes. And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to Pakistan in a few weeks, and I'm going to be meeting with a number of women who've been attacked with acid. And if you'd like to come along and film me, you're more than welcome. So we had to quickly get together some money to be able to go on this trip. And that was my role, was finding that money. And Daniel went with one camera and went and met with Dr. Jawad and his interviews with, I believe, 30 women in Pakistan who'd been attacked with acid. And that was the start of the film. What's interesting about it is we quickly realized Daniel, being a 6'2", blonde-haired, blue-eyed male, was not going to be able to get access in Pakistan to these women that we needed. So we aligned ourselves with a female Pakistani director by the name of Sharmeen Obaid Shinoy and her team, and she ended up shooting the majority of the film because she was able to be alone in the homes of these women, which is something Daniel would never have been able to do. So she ended up shooting the majority of the film, and then we did all of the post-production editing here in Denver, Colorado. And we sold the film to HBO about halfway through production. And they took over the whole marketing behind the film, and they're the ones who made the big push for the Oscar race. I was actually at the Sundance Film Festival when I heard we had been nominated, and I immediately flew to LA for the Oscar nominee brunch. So this is an intimate brunch that only the nominees are invited to. There is no press allowed in the room, so people are kind of let their guard down. I got to meet Steven Spielberg, I got to meet George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and they're just sitting around the table, and you're all kind of on the same level because you're nominees, even though I was very starstruck. And then I flew back out for the Oscars, and Bridesmaids actually presented our award. And Daniel and Sharmeen went on stage to receive the award and were greeted backstage by Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, congratulating them on the film. And there's an unspoken rule, apparently, if you win an Academy Award, every person on your team is invited to the Vanity Fair party, which is a big to-do after the Academy Awards, as long as they can fit in the one limo that has the actual physical Oscar in it. So we all piled into one limousine, husbands, wives, friends, as many people as we could fit into this one limousine. And we got there, and the bouncer said, do you have your ticket? And Daniel just stuck the Oscar out the window, and they just ushered all of us in to the Vanity Fair party, which was very cool. And we were greeted with In-N-Out burgers. That's the only food that they had there, the whole thing was a very surreal experience. But leading up to the Oscars, you actually spend a week in LA going to a number of events honoring the work of documentary filmmakers and having discussions around what's happening in the documentary film world. And to me, that was the most impactful part. I mean, the Oscars were fun, but for me, being part of a discussion about what's happening with documentary filmmaking and how we can get bigger audiences to documentary films and have a bigger impact nationally and internationally, that was really, really cool.